Hi everyone, so in today's video, I'll be reacting to an article from Vice News. So I particularly am interested in this article because the premise of the discussion is very close to everyone's heart, especially for those of you who have been long-time subscribers, and you'll know what I mean as we go through the article itself. So sit back, relax and enjoy. So the article title is, I lost $400,000, almost everything I had, on a single Robinhood bet. What a great title to draw people in. So a young retail trader explains what it's like to make the retail trade from hell. This article was actually back in December of 2021, so it has been around 7 months now. So let's turn back time, let's sit into our time capsule and see how things have played out thus far. And as the time of this recording is the 10th of July 2022. Now let's dive straight into the article. So I was 26 and stupid. What a great way to start the entire discussion. So I had arrived in the US when I was 18. I didn't have money and worked shitty jobs to get through college. I didn't go to a nice school and I've worked in sales ever since I graduated. My first job paid me like 40,000, next one 50,000. So I basically only started getting money like 3.5 years ago when I got a good job, and I was like, oh my god, this is really great. I think personally, I can't really comment much about my entire career thus far. I haven't really went into the quote-unquote real world, like how some of you like to put it. So previously, while I was waiting for my admission into university, I did work in some sort of a part-time role where I was kind of in the sales industry, where the mode of payment was via commissions. And for those of you who have worked in sales before, you should know that commissions pay via results, not by clocking in the time or not by some very vague metric. So as long as you deliver results, you get the commission. So I guess that is one of the way, especially for people that just started out, to see a great deal of money in the shortest period of time. So I had no other passions other than really earning money, just stacking it up, so I just worked and saved up quite a bit. I think the foreshadowing of this article is slightly scary because I can actually relate. Essentially, we are all kind of playing the money game, and to me, I personally don't feel like I have any other passions as well, rather other than creating YouTube videos and basically shit talking on the internet, and you guys just happen to like to hear what I have to say. So I'm super conservative. I don't spend anything. My monthly expenses are around $2,500 a month. The funny thing is, whenever people claim that they're conservative, I don't really know what's their framework or what's their guideline at the back of their brain when they make such an assessment. Because we all probably view risk from a different perspective. So for some of the investors out there, they think that crypto is incredibly risky. So by not touching crypto, you might think that you're conservative. But even within the investing realm itself, investing into the equities market, as long as you start stock picking, choosing individual stocks and not diversifying into a broad-based index, etc., you are already taking a great deal of risk. While people can tell me that, oh, I'm picking blue chip stocks, I'm picking your FANG stocks or your mama stocks, and say that, oh, I'm conservative, I'm diversified across 5 tech companies. That's not diversification, and you're still exposed to a great deal of idiosyncratic risk. So I think the first step to investing is really this idea of self-awareness and understanding your risk profile, your risk appetite, and exactly where you're at on the entire risk spectrum. And truth be told, to be brutally honest with you guys, by running a concentrated portfolio, I know I'm an extreme risk taker. Of course, I will consider myself in the high risk category, but even within the high risk category, there are different cleavages and there are different categorization, if I can put it that way. So back to the story. So I paid $900 a month in rent. The 3 biggest purchases I've made in the last 10 years were my laptop in 2014, which was around $1,500, my car in 2017, which was around $2,700, $2,800, and even recently I bought myself a new iPhone, which I've never done before ever, for $1,300. I usually use my mom's old phone when she gets a new one. That's definitely an incredibly frugal lifestyle. I think likewise, one of my biggest purchase, at least for the last 2 or 3 years, was this new revamping of my entire setup. I bought a new PC, I bought new keyboards, screens, monitors, etc. I spent a great deal of money on it. I'm not going to lie. I guess it's around at least $4,000, $5,000. And I don't know which country this guy is living in, but having a car at $2,700, $2,800, it's incredibly cheap. For those of you who are in Singapore, just buying the COE alone, which is a certificate of entitlement, before even buying the car, that piece of paper itself costs 6 digits. So let's not talk about it. So owning a car is an increasingly debatable financial decision, at least from Singapore's perspective. And he also bought a new iPhone that he has never done before. Fun fact, I actually bought my iPhone on Carousel, which is a second-hand kind of platform where they connect buyers and sellers. And I got my iPhone 12 at like $700 plus in Singapore. So if you convert to USD, I think that's around like 500 plus. And the battery life is 100% and it was still under Apple Care. So I guess the idea and philosophy of value investing, it permeates your entire being, and value investing is a lifestyle. It's not an investment philosophy only. But for those of you who actually resonate, remember to help smash the like button as well. Now, it will come off as stupid, but I consider myself conservative from an investing perspective. I had $300,000 in a high yield savings account, and I made like $1,000 a year on it, which was ridiculous. But I have been following the market pretty consistently. So my job involves a lot of researching companies and trying to understand business and economic models. I like to read a lot, and there's a lot of books on investing. So like I said, this is a very scary article, at least for me, because it resonated a lot with me. So the entire persona of this investor, it's essentially like foreshadowing my life. And of course, I definitely wouldn't want to be losing $400,000 in the market. But that's besides the point, because I don't even have that much money to begin with. So I put chump change like 3 grand into crypto when I only had 5 grand to begin with in 2017, and I lost it all. But I was seeing everybody making money hand over fist, and I wasn't. I work in tech, and a lot of my colleagues were worth like 10 million, but the big tipping point was GameStop. It was just ridiculous, and I got greedy and had FOMO. So for those of you who don't know, FOMO means fear of missing out. I think thankfully, for myself, I was not caught up in the entire GameStop AMC saga. I have never touched any of those hype trains or those the entire short squeeze tobacco. And likewise, I didn't want to be distracted from whatever I've been doing for at least the last 2 odd years. So here comes the main kicker. It didn't start with Alibaba. It started with a $5,000 bet on AMC. Then the 5,000 became 15,000 when I bet on something else. Then it became 50,000 when I bet on silver. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm done with this. Now I want to buy a safe bet. And the safe bet was Alibaba. And that was the famous last words. It had fallen from 330 to 245, but I wanted to find a company where the price earnings ratio was low and every single analyst had a buy rating with like a 40 to 50% upside on it. Looking at all of tip ranks, my understanding was that this was a very, very safe bet with a limited amount of risk. Then I just went all in on this one single stock option, the $200 strike price call option on Alibaba. I would describe a call option as a leverage bet on an underlying stock, which helps you increase the upside or downside of the bet you're trying to make. I initially invested 300,000 in FAB, basically every single liquid asset in my account, not retirement, but everything cash. I didn't have anything left. My thesis was I might not make a lot of money, but I won't lose much. The downside seemed limited, and that if worse comes to worse, it will go down to like $280,000. So I think by just squarely looking into these paragraphs, we have a lot of lessons to be distilled and a lot of discussion points to be made. So let's take our time to peel off the layer one by one. Firstly, he was caught into the FOMO, and the funny thing is, actually, if you lost money from chasing the hype train or short squeeze or looking into companies like GameStop or AMC, if you were to lose money, I think it will actually have been a blessing in disguise. That will also mean that you might have been burned, maybe by penny stocks, and maybe burned by all these quote-unquote meme stocks, and you would probably have walked away with a very valuable lesson. I think the worrying thing about betting or gambling on these stocks and then still winning on these particular counters will start building your greediness, and you will start framing your entire methodology and your philosophy. It positions your mindset into the wrong frame of thinking that, hey, this is how investing should be like. But I would believe, or I would argue, that a lot of people don't think so. But that's the first part. And the second point is, thankfully, this wasn't his entire investing career. He made a great deal of money on it, $50,000 by betting on silver. And then he wanted to pivot over to a secondary strategy, which arguably is quote-unquote a safe bet. So the safe bet was then Alibaba, and it has fallen by a great margin. I think when he was observing the price, it was around 245. That's at least 30% from its all-time high. So here comes the problem. I don't know what level of due diligence that he has done, but judging from how he has talked about understanding economic models, business models, and that's part of his job scope in his day-to-day job, I don't think that he's financially illiterate. I don't think he doesn't know how to read balance sheet. He doesn't know how to do a simple DCF, watch YouTube videos, and make an assessment on his own. So I wanted to point you guys to this interesting phenomenon. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. So I'm not too sure whether you guys are aware of this law, But essentially, the x-axis is competence and the y-axis is just confidence. So in this 2C graph, you can see that when your competency start moving from knowing nothing to being a guru level, your confidence stage experience this sort of tumultuous and very interesting phenomenon. So the lesser you know, of course, you will not have any confidence in terms of executing that skill or that trait. And once you start learning a little bit more, your confidence start getting up. And there's this period called the peak of Mount Stupid. So you might think that you know a lot and suddenly your confidence is peaking and you're basically the king of the world. And then after the more you experience, the more you do certain things and the more you hone your craft and skills, then you realize that, hey, I'm not nowhere close of being a guru or nowhere close of being good. So that's when you go through this entire idea of a valley of despair. And after picking up, slowly enhancing your skill set and gaining more experiences, and that's when you go through this entire phase of the slope of enlightenment. So this might actually be the scariest part. You think that you are doing the right thing, you convince yourself that you are doing the right thing, and on top of that, because you're confident of your skill set in terms of picking companies, in terms of being able to bet against the market and win the market, so that's why you go into the idea of having a leverage bet. Why don't just buy the stock at $220? I don't understand. So that's the second point. And I think moving on to the third point, which is slightly related to the previous one. So personally to me, investing is a very heart-wrenching game. It's not really the game of brains, the game of the ability to analyze, etc. It's always the game of managing your emotions. As we know, there are the 8 deadly sins. The first one is pride and the second one is greed. When you're up and others are down, you'll be laughing at people, and you might be on cloud 9 and think that you're the investment messiah. Warren Buffett is too old for his age. He doesn't know what he's doing. The first sin, to be too prideful of your achievements and think that you are better than everyone else. The second sin, which is ultimately greed. The funny thing is, when I look at this entire article, this dude or this bloke is 26 and he has $300,000 when he's 26. I'm not too sure why is he, what is he trying to chase? I dare argue that he's probably better than 80% of the population at his age. Or maybe he might already be the top 10 percentile. And he just wanted more. Greed got the better of him and he took up a leverage bet and started leveraging his entire net worth into the call option, which is quite an interesting phenomenon if you were to ask me. Managing $300,000 at 26 years old, you are already leaps and bounds ahead of your competition. So what are you exactly trying to chase? Of course, people will start arguing, oh, I want to achieve financial freedom as early as possible, and I want to have a good retirement lifestyle, I want to retire earlier. Sure, those are perfectly normal financial goals, but you have to look at the vehicle you are in and how much risk you are taking. And at this point in time, you can see as the story develops, he essentially blew his entire account. And pivoting over to the fourth point, which is the last point, I think his entire ideology of looking risk-reward in terms of investments and how to diversify away the risk, or at least on the portfolio level, is quite skewed. I'm not too sure where he got his idea that, firstly, how is Alibaba, which is a Chinese company, a safe bet? Secondly, how is going all in into one stock safe in any metric? Go around and ask and use any yardstick out there in the investment world. Just buying into one company will not make any of your portfolio safe. And lastly, why are you using options, which is going all in on the long dated? I don't care whether is it leaps for 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, and sinking your entire net worth into call options. The funny thing is, he did slide in 1 or 2 commentaries from the value investing approach, where they are flirting with this idea of heads I win, tails I don't lose much. But in this event, of course, clearly he misunderstood and underwritten a great deal of risk that he was not ready to take. Now, the price started to continuously drop almost from the get-go. I was watching it night and day and it took a mental toll. The issue with Alibaba is a dual listed stock. It trades in Hong Kong and in the US. So all day you are watching pre-market and opening in Hong Kong, and then again in the US, Monday through Friday, you are constantly watching. My mum told me on April 13th, and it might have been ego, it might have been just stupidity, ignoring the facts, but my conviction was high. So it was stupid, an extreme level of greed and risk-taking. Just sharing from my own personal experience, I didn't have any troubles going to sleep. That you don't have to worry. That's a very good benchmark and yardstick into understanding whether the risk that you are taking, does it commensurate your entire risk appetite. So they call it the sleep test. So if you can't sleep at night and if you're constantly glued to your brokerage, looking at your portfolio's fluctuation, then maybe that suggests to you that, hey, maybe you are taking on too much risk for your own appetite and get out today, like his mom suggested. So next point, in this blue highlighter, but my conviction was high. So I can understand why other YouTubers, maybe like Josh Tan, where he was criticizing all these young blokes like me as well. You can consider myself in that category, where we use this term conviction very loosely. We thought by putting in the hours of studying the company for a few days or even a few weeks and think that, oh, this is an investment opportunity of a lifetime and I'll sink my entire net worth into the company because I have conviction. So I'm still trying to explore my relationship with this idea of conviction. So I know in investing there is a lot of irony, there's a lot of contradiction as well. On one hand, you want to be fairly opinionated, you need to do your due diligence, you need to stick to your gun. On the other hand, you also have to be extremely skeptical and worry from falling in love with the stock, because this is ultimately not choosing a wife. You don't have to be married to a stock forever. So when the fundamentals change and when facts change, you better change your opinions as well. So this is a very fine line to balance. I'm still learning along the way, and I believe that for long-time subscribers, you have probably grown alongside me and see the developments in terms of my thinking and in terms of my thought process as well. So that's that. We all grow together. Now, this is essentially a screen grab of his Robinhood account. His buying power is zero. He lost $374,000, which is negative 100%. There is no money left. So this whole $400,000 turned to almost zero. It was at that time that I knew there's no coming back from this. I was literally begging for it to come back so I could even get $300,000 out. Just praying. You know, like once you go from desperation to literally praying, and I'm not even religious. Yeah, I actually know how it feels, but that was when I was back in primary school and I didn't study for a test. And I was literally just praying to any single god out there. But that's besides the point. But the truth was, I was still somewhat optimistic. I still had $75,000 and I was hoping that Alibaba would make a recovery, which of course it did not. My next thing was, okay, how do I earn all this money back? But it fell from 75,000 to 50,000 and ... So I was pretty depressed for like 2 months. That's sad to hear. Please feel free to reach out if you're feeling a great deal of stress. And if you're feeling this great deal of stress, then I don't think the investment game, or I don't think investing in the market is even a good instrument for you to compound your wealth. And side note, I think Singapore Savings Bond is giving like 3% guaranteed return for the next 10 years or so. So if you guys always feel this emotional gyration whenever the market moves against your favor, then I don't know. I think it's up for you to make the assessment in whether investing in the markets is the right instrument for yourself. I'm not a financial advisor, don't quote me on anything, but please seek out professional help. I can't help you, I'm just a random guy on the internet. Anyway, I don't believe in passive index investing. You know how Warren Buffett made a multi-million-dollar bet that the index will outperform a bunch of hedge funds over a decade-long period? My truthful belief is I don't necessarily believe passive investing to be the answer. So there's a lot of other folks like me who think they know the stock market and the right way to manage risk exposure and diversify, but a lot of them do not. They're just overconfident idiots. And I'd like to echo again. A lot of them do not, they're just overconfident idiots, including myself, by the way. I'm not at all offended by this, because the funny thing is, personally, I also don't necessarily believe passive investing to be the answer. It might very well be a very pompous statement, looking back after 10 years later, when I'm maybe in my 30s or 40s. But truth be told, like I said, when I'm managing a sizable amount of money in future for my own personal portfolio, as I start to seek to de-risk, because maybe I have family commitments, I have mortgages, I cannot take a great deal amount of risk again, I would gladly rely back on passive investing. The baseline infrastructure of your portfolio, maybe a good 30-40%, should consist of just passive investing, whether you want to buy into a world index, the S&P 500, the STI, the Hang Seng Index, whatever that suits your choice. I would believe that this would kind of act as a safeguard. Essentially, if you were to sink 30% of your portfolio into a world index fund, and if the world index fund crashes like 90%, then you know that the entire stock market is not in very good shape as well. So that's just my fundamental belief in terms of portfolio construction. However, I would still argue that there is a role for active investing. Not just to outperform the market and try to beat the benchmark, but at the end of the day, I believe that there are a lot of valuable lessons and transferable skill sets that it brings to your life. And just being a financial analyst looking at business model or economic models will be beneficial, especially for all you entrepreneurs out there, or for all you executives out there that are working in a management capacity. You'll make more astute decisions. You'll be a lot more critical and analytical in your perspective and how you view things and how you view the entire world. So of course, that's just my own willful thinking. And like I concur, Many people are just overconfident idiots, including myself. We all think that we can beat the market and we are better than everyone else in the market, which is why we always like to quote this idea of, oh, this is an opportunity of your lifetime. If it really is, why are you the one discovering it? Think about it. But anyway, looking at how the story developed, his initial thought of diversifying risk and going into a safe bet, buying call options into Alibaba, that was wrong on so many levels. So yeah, many people don't know what risk diversification even means, unless you probably take like the CFA or really understand it from a finance perspective in terms of managing volatility and managing idiosyncratic risk. Moving on, Alibaba is today trading at $125, which is almost half of where it was at the beginning when I bought it. The interesting thing is, at the time of this recording, on the July of 2022, which is at least 7 months later, Alibaba is still trading at around the $120 range. And the lowest it went was in March of 2022, and I think Alibaba lowest was trading at $70 odd. And of course, all his options will be expired worthless, regardless of how much it's trading, because it has a strike price of $200. So in retrospect, it's extremely obvious that it was a stupid decision from a risk management perspective and from a basic investment fundamentals perspective, a combination of ego, greed, overconfidence and FOMO. Still, if I could do it again, I wouldn't have put the other $100,000 in, but I would have still made the initial $300,000 bet, even if I would have lost it all. Had I not gotten this lesson, had I not lost the 300,000 now, I would have thought, hey, this is something within my circle of competence, which I absolutely know now it is not. What if I had waited another 3 years and it had been 2 million instead of 300,000? I think that's the biggest risk whenever you are playing with such derivatives or instruments, basically going to a call option or going to a put option. Time decay is always on the opposite end, especially when you're a buyer of call or put options. And this is the issue, right? If you were to look at how things have transpired for Alibaba thus far, of course, it has been a great deal of falling knife. It was an extremely heart-wrenching journey, especially for those of you who diamond-handed all the way, at least for the last 18 months. And some of you continuously buy the dip, and the dip just keeps dipping, and cheap just keeps getting cheaper. So essentially in the stock market, there is no quote-unquote safe bet, and this idea of guarantee is non-existent. The stock market can just go sideways for the next 10 years, and who knows, it might be the lost decade again. So always be critical and skeptical about your own investment decisions. So just some parting words and maybe 3 key lessons. Number 1, always be skeptical about yourself and stay humble and always be learning. Don't be that overconfident idiot and think that you know everything better than anyone else. Number 2, whenever you get into derivatives or financial instruments, or even just buying into equities itself, be extremely clear what you're getting yourself into. Don't think that this is a quote-unquote safe bet, I'm diversifying my portfolio, etc, etc. No, it doesn't work that way. Always know that the worst case scenario, especially when sinking money into the stock market, is you'll lose everything. And worse still, for people going into leveraging and margin, you'll lose even faster because you might get margin called, and you might even be called upon to put in even more money and to service your margin debt essentially. And I think the last lesson is, I don't want you guys to walk away from this video thinking that options is risky and we shouldn't touch options. Theoretically speaking, because I came from a finance background, I can understand how options can supplement your entire investment strategy. And by employing some of this very fanciful strategy, it actually helps you achieve a particular financial objective, or maybe a particular strategy that you're trying to concoct in your own personal portfolio, maybe to hedge a certain position or whatnot. And it is fairly common in the investing space where a lot of all these funds are employing different strategies. But the problem is, for those of you who don't know, and you don't know how things complement each other, that's when it gets dangerous. So options ultimately is a tool, like fire. Fire is a tool. If you use it properly, you can create extremely positive results. But if you don't know how to handle it, you essentially burn yourself. Simple as that. And simply put, a very sombering reminder for every one of you who think that you're behind life and you're losing to your competition, and you look at your friends and your friends have this and that, and you're way back. And when you're locked into this comparison mindset, that's when greed comes. That's when, hey, my friend just got that Mercedes or that BMW, I want to get it too, so I'm short of X amount of dollars. I need to earn 50,000 in the next 6 months. That's why I start employing leverage bets, I start using options, I start going to margins. That's extremely dangerous. Just know what you're doing and know that you can't run away. We are all accountable for our own actions. Know what you're getting yourself into, and I'll just end off with this simple quote from Peter Lynch. Don't buy options and don't invest on margins. With options, time works against you, and if you're on margin, a drop in the market can wipe you out. Always remember, a huge part of investing is to stay in the market and to have that ability to survive a market downturns. Love y'all. With that, I'll see you in the next video, but more importantly, I will see you on the moon. Goodbye.